It's time for Lefties Losing It, and we'll be getting to our 5 biggest lefties losing it at the Grammys shortly. But first, let's check in with actor Peter Dinklage, who recited this moving, poignant poem for Renee Good. This is not at all cringe and crazy.
For Renee Nicole Good, killed by ICE on January 7th, 2026. They say she is no more, that there her absence roars, blood blown like a rose. Iced wheels flinched and froze, now bare riot of candles.
Oh dear, that's the same nincompoop whose activism saw dwarf actors miss out on coveted roles. Remember that? Peter Dinklage just put 7 of us out of job. Dwarf actors fury at Disney for cancelling 7 dwarfs from Snow White remake because the woke multi-millionaire Game of Thrones star said they were offensive. Yes, well done, Peter, you selfish flog. Before we delve into the Grammys, let's check in on NBC host Kristen Welker. Here she is interviewing, if you can call it that, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Listen to the framing of this question.
Mr. Blanche, is the death of U.S. citizens a price the Trump administration is willing to pay to carry out its immigration policies?
Oh, Kristen, you deserve to be schooled for asking a question like that, and that's precisely what happened.
Very confused about why the conversation is about what you're talking about, instead of focusing on what really matters, which is why in one city, in one place do we have these problems. We deport 10 times the number of illegal aliens out of Texas than we do out of Minneapolis. Why do we hear nothing out of Texas about any of the same problems that we have in Minneapolis? I'll tell you why. Because in Texas, we have the cooperation and support of local law enforcement so that we can do these operations safely, keeping U.S. citizens and others protected and safe. That is not what we have in Minneapolis.
Yes, the likes of NBC's Kristen Welker want to blame the Trump administration for the lawlessness and violence we are seeing from agitators in Minnesota and the obstruction we are seeing from the Democrat governor and the mayor of Minneapolis. And that's precisely the line of celebrity virtue signalling we were treated to at the Grammys, with the stars wearing ICE out badges and clapping each other's asinine comments. Here are the worst of the worst, the top 5 lefties losing it at the Grammys, starting with, well, the man who will be headlining the Super Bowl halftime show, Bad Bunny. And I'm sure I recall him promising not to come to Trump's America and perform there because it was unsafe. But he is in America collecting awards and talking crap.
I'm going to say, eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
Well, you see, if you're talking about Americans in America legally, then they have absolutely nothing to fear from ICE. But these dim-witted celebs seem not to be able to differentiate between legal and illegal immigrants, including the dude in the number 4 spot of our lefties losing it at the Grammys, Shabuzi, who was in tears as he deliberately confused illegal and legal migrants.
Immigrants built this country, literally. So this is for them, for all children of immigrants. This is also for those who came to this country in search of better opportunity, to be a part of a nation that promised freedom for all and equal opportunity to everyone willing to work for it. Thank you for bringing your culture, your music, your stories, and your traditions here. You give America color. I love y'all so much. Thank you.
In the number 3 spot is a rapper I've never heard of before who had plenty to say on the red carpet and on stage. Here is Kalani.
I really wanted to say but I think they needed some couth on the carpet or something. I'm a little couthless, ruthless. But I think everybody, we're too powerful of a group to all be in the room at the same time and not make some kind of statement in our country. So yeah, it's brainless to me. everybody's inspired to join together as a community of artists and speak out against what's going on. And I'm gonna leave this and say, F ICE.
Now to the coveted number 2 position, and it's Billie Eilish with one of the dumbest statements ever uttered on stage. She claims here that nobody is illegal on stolen land. If you don't believe in borders, Billie, then how can anyone be on stolen land? Think about it. And it's all well and good to spew such absurd platitudes when you live in a mansion behind big walls and gates with armed security nearby. Watch here as the simpletons in the crowd, including Sabrina Carpenter, clap like trained seals at Billie's profoundly stupid words.
No one is illegal on stolen land. And yeah, it's just really hard to know what to say and what to do right now.
It's hard to know what to say. She went on to say F ICE, just so brave and so profound. But she's not number one, because this next dude, the host of the Grammys, wins for saying something so silly that he could see him sued for defamation and financially ruined. Not sure this joke was worth a likely lawsuit, Trevor Noah.
That is a Grammy that every artist wants, almost as much as Trump wants Greenland. Which makes sense. I mean, because Epstein's island is gone, he needs a new one to hang out with Bill Clinton, so...
And that cheap, unfunny joke may cost Trevor Noah dearly, because moments after the Grammys concluded, President Trump posted this, saying that the Grammys are the worst, virtually unwatchable. And he had this to say about Trevor Noah's Epstein claims. He said, "I can't speak for Bill," that would be Bill Clinton, "but I have never been to Epstein Island, and until tonight's false and defamatory statement, have never been accused of being there, not even by the fake news media. Noah, a total loser, better get his facts straight and get them straight fast. It looks like I'll be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC." Ouch. And earlier today, he doubled down on that criticism.
Mr. President, are you going to sue Trevor Noah? Last night in a post, you alluded that something could be coming.
Yeah, well, he said that I spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island. I didn't. I mean, he's a lightweight, this guy. He's a terrible, I think he's terrible. I thought he did a terrible job at the Grammys. I thought the whole Grammys was terrible. I watched part of it. It's not watchable. But he was a lousy host. I'd say not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, but pretty close. And no, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein's. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, we're going to get to the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein shortly, but let's start with the Grammys. And it's all fun and games until the president sues you for false defamatory claims. And Donald Trump has had a great success in this area, and he's got some massive payouts for these sorts of false claims.
He has. I think he's north of $100 million now, and it all goes to the ballroom or his library, which is funny. This one, legal experts say, is tricky because it really is a First Amendment thing where he was making a joke, as bad and unfunny as the joke was. So it might be difficult, but I think most of the time Trump's strategy isn't really the legal merit. It's just to scare them a little bit. He wields that litigious sword now unabashedly, especially after the lawfare he had to be subjected to. And Trevor Noah is an independent right now. He was hired by CBS to host the Grammys, but he's actually an independent journalist. And just even the nuisance of having to lawyer up and do defense and all that is why he's scaring him, I think. But even if he doesn't launch it, just that tweet alone, where he was a loser and terrible and a dope, not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, that will live on in infamy.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Noah is notoriously unfunny. I mean, I can't remember the last time he said anything remotely amusing. Again, so many of these so-called comics these days, they're just activists and they're looking for applause, not laughs. Staying with the Grammys, Billie Eilish's stupid, contradictory and hypocritical comments have inspired a lot of parodies, including this.
My name is Billie Eilish, and no humans illegal on stolen land. I live in a gated community but I just think what's going on right now, my management told me, is terrible.
How can she say we are on stolen land and no one's illegal? I mean, if you don't believe in borders, then how can we be on stolen land? Because we're all free to just claim any sort of territory as we like.
But circular logic is so fun. It's like being on a merry-go-round, and so that's what she's doing. And just the irony was not lost on anybody, certainly on her, that she had to put in that Instagram that she lives behind a gated community. She threw that in there, which was another thing that she didn't realize. Like, that is the definition of a border. She has a gated community, but don't look at how I live, just look at what I say, rules for thee, not for me.
Absolutely. Now, there was some resistance to the wall-to-wall leftist virtue signalling at the Grammys. Here is sports reporter Emily Austin refusing to stand up and applaud anti-ICE statements.
Standing ovation for ICE out. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down. You should all be ashamed of yourself. We love America. I love our law enforcement.
Now, in that room, in that industry, that takes real courage, Kosha.
It really does. And it's, I think, in large part possible because she is independent. Even then, it takes courage, but she is independent. I actually didn't know who she was. I looked her up. And she came to fame during COVID as a university student. She's obviously very young.
Yeah.
And she was interviewing pro athletes via Instagram Lives about the COVID restrictions and mandates. Yeah. And she recognized a void that nobody in the mainstream media was willing to touch. And that has now shot her up to a couple million followers. She's being invited to the Grammys. And so she knows who her audience is and who she's speaking to. And it really is a wide open lane for anyone willing to do it. That's the funny thing. But it does take a lot of guts because you will be shunned from the mainstream.
It will. And it's not going to get her a gig on ESPN. She's not going to pick up a major broadcasting job because they're all in the groupthink. They're all along with the Grammys and the Oscars, no doubt, will be spewing the same nonsense. Now, let's hear from NBA coach Steve Kerr, who owns up here to spreading misinformation. It's exceedingly rare for these activists to ever be questioned about their hyperbolic statements. So good on this outkick journalist for actually doing his job.
I know you had mentioned that, you know, ICE isn't rooting out violent criminals, but is instead taking 5-year-olds. Since we know that ICE has indeed arrested violent criminals, and perhaps some of those statements could be seen as misinformed or possibly divisive, what would you say to that?
You're right. I definitely misspoke, and I knew that ICE was arresting some criminals, and I think I immediately regretted it because I knew that to be the case. But my point is that they're also arresting people and detaining citizens and people who should not be being detained. And the manner in which they're doing it, as you see, is riling everybody up all over the country.
But that's just more fake news, Steve Kerr. ICE is operating throughout the US, and yet it's only in Minnesota, a state in an unprecedented multi-billion-dollar fraud crisis, where we are seeing these violent daily protests. Let's look at some of the numbers here. More than 88,000 ICE arrests in Texas, more than 34,000 in Florida, more than 30,000 in California. No daily riots in those states, Kosha.
I didn't love the word misspeak. I think that was a little bit weak in his apology, but I won't nitpick. At least he went further than most would. And the real lesson for him is just stay in your lane and coach. Don't get into politics.
He won't listen to that lesson.
He won't. That's the easiest lesson to learn, though, if only. In terms of the numbers, yes, that is the story. And I think the Trump administration has been a little bit on the back foot in terms of the media narrative. They have so much they can talk about that's going well, but they are in defense mode and they're trying to turn that around. And that is one of many points that they should be pushing, that Minnesota is the exception. It's not the rule. Even California, 30,000 is interesting. And I think the reason why is Minnesota is within reach. It's like a bluish purple state. Trump won it in 2016 by only 48,000 votes or something like that. And after that, a couple 200,000. Whereas California is so far gone that even though the fraud there and the illegals there is a big problem, it's like 5 million votes or so to cover.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why they are fighting, they being the left, for this. Because if you remove 200, 300,000 illegals and some percentage of them are voting in the election, you could potentially flip Minnesota, and this is existential.
Absolutely. And these protests are not organic. They're well planned. And even someone like Don Lemon, who was taught, he was part of that protest. He wasn't just there to report it. But his coverage showed that they were mainly from interstate. The ones he was speaking to seemed to so many of them be travelled across states to be there.
Absolutely.
It's not an organic protest. They are very well organised and they are actively obstructing and attacking officers. I mean, that is, again, doesn't fit the definition of a protest.
Absolutely, and that's why that whole of government approach, where you've got ICE, you've got Border Patrol, you've got the National Guard, you've got the governor and the president trying to somehow break bread to the extent that they can, and then you've got the DOJ making arrests, like those 3 people and Don Lemon. That is controversial, and some worry it might backfire politically, but I think he is sending a message, the Trump organization, and Don Lemon probably didn't realize, in my opinion, how he has stepped in it. He really is in legal trouble.
Now, this is an incredible development in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Former US President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and failed presidential candidate, have agreed to testify in the congressional investigation into the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Koshad, this comes as the Republican-led House of Reps was preparing to vote on holding both Clintons in criminal contempt for defying these legal summonses. So when we first saw that, we said, this is never going to happen. They're never going to testify, but here we are.
This is big breaking news. And so what changed? 2 things. One is the House committee voted to advance the contempt of Congress process, and it had bipartisan support because the Democrats have been jumping up and down about releasing the files. And so there is a good chance that they will actually be held in contempt of Congress, and that vote was scheduled in short order. And then the second thing is the legal strategy that we discussed as it relates to Don Lemon and his co-conspirators, as it even relates to the more frivolous things like Trevor Noah. I think they really know that this DOJ will potentially prosecute them if they're held in contempt of Congress. Typically, the DOJ doesn't do that for political contempt charges, like Eric Holder and many other people were held. Didn't happen. But the Biden DOJ did prosecute Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, and they both served a few months in jail. And I think the Clintons know that retribution, that word, is a possibility, high bar for a former president and first lady, but it's a possibility, and that's why they're playing. But it's going to be closed door, so I don't think we're going to get a lot of sound bites.
I don't even call it retribution. It's called precedent now.
Yeah.
The Democrats went after Navarro, they went after Bannon, and they put them in jail. And you can't behave like that. You can't weaponise these agencies and say this is now the standard, and if you don't meet it, you're going to jail, and pretend they're exempt from it. Let's go to New York now. It's supposed to be magical in winter, but things are not going well under the new socialist mayor. People are dying, literally dying from the cold, and the streets are dirty with piles of filthy snow and bags of rubbish. A prominent social media influencer posted this video writing, "Welcome to the zip code with the highest taxes in the nation and the highest piles of garbage and ice. We good with this?" Well, Kosher, they voted for this. This isn't, of course, due just to Mamdani. We've had years of failure and mismanagement in New York City, but it'll probably be turbocharged under this socialist.
Yep, they did vote for it. They're getting it good and hard, as we say. It breaks my heart, my favorite city in the world. I lived there for 16 years under Giuliani, Bloomberg, and de Blasio. And snowstorms always were a big test for new mayors. And Bloomberg was relatively centrist, messed up. He was in Bermuda having a vacation one time when there was a snowstorm. De Blasio was hopeless. And you can't do that in a city with 8 million plus people, hundreds of thousands of cars and vehicles. It really is a big problem to not clear the streets competently. Maybe some of that criticism is unfair to the leader because there's more structural things that have to happen. But ultimately, that's what leadership is. The buck stops with you. I will just say the snow will melt ultimately, but Mamdani's ideology will not melt. And they are going to be living with that for some time.
And this is supposed to be a mayor who's all about compassion and about helping the poor. And you look at the numbers who have died from the cold, and that really is quite shameful for any first world city to have more than a dozen people die during a cold snap.
It is shameful, and that is something that he should never be able to live down. But people don't cover that or talk about that, and I think
if it was a Republican mayor overseeing that sort of,
it'd be wall to wall.
You would never hear and you'd be hearing about each one of these individuals. You would know their names. We're not seeing that sort of reporting. Kosher Gator, thank you so much for your time.